My wife is a genius artist. From a portrait of a 3-year-old child, she can draw what they will look like grown up. So when thugs came to her with a 3-year-old photo of Bai Ningbing's childhood sweetheart with just a few strokes, she recognized him as her unforgettable first love. Thus, my wife had a sudden idea and deliberately drew him to look like me, completely ignoring the fact that to save her from a fire, my hands were completely ruined, meaning I could never operate again. In the end, I was taken by the debt-collecting thugs, thrown into the sea. Meanwhile, she and her sweetheart seized my inheritance and had a grand wedding abroad. Opening my eyes again, I had returned to the year the fire happened. Fong Yuan, your house is on fire. Sister Bai Ningbing is still trapped inside. Come back quickly and save her. At this moment, Bai Ningbing's best friend since childhood, Lu Ruyan, was on the phone with me, her voice trembling and anxious, acting completely panicked. At that time, I was standing at the sink, just out of surgery. My gloves were still stained with blood. I hurriedly put down the phone and quickly took off the blood-stained gloves, staring closely at my own hands. There were no ugly scars burned by fire on them. My 10 fingers were smooth and whole, with only a thin layer of calluses. I sighed deeply, confirming that I had returned to before the fire. Last time, I got out of surgery early in the morning, only to receive a cry for help from Bai Ningbing's best friend. I didn't even have time to change my clothes and rushed straight there from the hospital, charging into the fire to save Bai Ningbing. She had fainted in a corner. At that moment, a burning wooden beam was crumbling precariously above her head. To save her, I lunged forward and caught the beam with my bare hands, which forcibly ruined my own hands. From then on, I could never operate again and was dismissed by the hospital, losing my job. But after Bai Ningbing woke up, while tearfully expressing her gratitude to me in front of everyone, she secretly complained to her best friend behind my back. Disgusted, she said my hands full of scars were as disgusting as being covered in dense, crawling bugs. Her best friend Lu Ruyan smiled and advised her, if you find him disgusting and useless now, just divorce him and find a better one. But before things even developed to that stage, I was targeted by several knife-wielding thugs at my door. They looked at the portrait in their hands, came up and knocked me out, putting me in a sack. They planned to throw me into the sea to silence me. Before being tossed down through a small hole in the sack, I saw the portrait the thugs were holding. The portrait was indeed of me, but the photo of the child attached to the top right corner was not me. I immediately thought of my wife, Bai Ningbing. She is a famous genius artist. She can draw a person's adult self from a 3-year-old's photo. She once assisted the police in solving a major case, and that photo of the child, I had once seen it in her photo album. It was exactly her childhood sweetheart, her unforgettable white moonlight, Wang Dadang. After being thrown into the sea by the thugs and perishing, my soul lingered around her, unable to dissipate for a long time. The first day after my death, she brought Wang Dadang into our home. Then, on the bed I bought, they performed intimate acts. Later, they seized my inheritance, went abroad, chartered a yacht, and had a grand, glorious wedding. I entered the underworld full of hatred, while they enjoyed their wedding night. Until the moment my soul dissipated, I still couldn't let it go. Hatred was like a poisonous snake, wandering in my mind. I made up my mind. Before, they caused my innocent and tragic death. Now, I will make them reap what they sow. Lu Ruyan's urging voice urgently came through the phone. I picked up the phone. My voice cold. For a fire, call 119. For an ambulance, call 120. Just use your hands. Lu Ruyan on the other end of the line unsurprisingly exploded, cursing at me directly. Fong Yuan, you ungrateful wolf, heartless and ruthless. Bing treats you so well normally, and this is how you repay her? And what about you? You have time to call me, but no time to call 119 for her? Are you hoping she dies in there? Lu Ruyan instantly shut up, blocked by my words, unable to speak. Although she grew up with Bai Ningbing and studied abroad together, her family's condition wasn't as good as Bai Ningbing's. This caused her to be jealous of Bai Ningbing since childhood. She always kissed up to Bai Ningbing, fearing her, yet envying her. They weren't good friends at all. After changing my clothes, I continued preparing for the next surgery and turned off my phone completely, ensuring I wouldn't receive any messages. Seeing these hands of mine, still able to perform surgery, a strong sense of relief surged in my heart. 3 hours later, a surgery ended. I changed my clothes, and the nurse at the information desk reminded me that Bai Ningbing had arrived. Bai Ningbing had visited my hospital a few times in earlier years. Most of my colleagues knew that we were husband and wife. I replied nonchalantly and casually asked about her injury. The nurse stammered, her eyes filled with concealment and hesitation. Sister Bai Ningbing is fine, but the Mr. Wang who came with her, his hands are severely burned. I paused, realizing I had to do rounds anyway. I asked for both of their room numbers in passing. When I arrived at their ward door, the door wasn't fully closed. The sound of their conversation drifted out. Bai Ningbing was holding a phone, frantically taking pictures of Wang Dadang's injuries. After showing them to Wang Dadang, she buried her head in the phone, typing away. Wang Dadang looked pale, smiling as he coaxed Bai Ningbing. Bing, relying on this charity crowdfunding, we can easily get a lot of money for free. Once I endure through this period, I'll take you away from here, and we'll go live abroad. After hearing these words, Bai Ningbing's face was full of heartache and emotion. She cried beautifully, showing true feeling. But your hands, it's all my fault. Saying this, she leaned her body onto Wang Dadang. Seeing this, I remembered. In my past life, after my hands were burned, Bai Ningbing, I don't know who she heard it from, insisted I set up a charity crowdfunding, but my savings from early years were enough to cover the medical bills and living expenses, so I sternly refused her. She instead grew angry and cursed at me. Idiot, you won't even use a fast way to make money. Unexpectedly, she didn't give up, secretly took photos of me, and filed a false application. Finally, I threatened to call the police, which made her stop, waiting until Bai Ningbing in the ward finished crying. I also pressed off my phone, secretly opened voice recorder. She wiped her tears, stood up, turned to grab water from the table, and at a glance, saw me, who had just walked in. In her tearful eyes, malice suddenly seeped out. Fong Yuan, how do you still have the nerve to appear in front of me? Did you want to watch me burn to death alive, and then inherit my dad's inheritance left for me? Her face was full of meanness, pointing her finger right at my nose. Hearing this, displeasure surged in my heart. With a little force, I bent her hand to the side, warning her coldly, you are not worthy of mentioning teacher Bai. Speaking of which, I felt a bit sad. Her father was my mentor, who entrusted her to me before he died. bride, but Bai Ningbing, to accompany Wang Dating's dog's birthday, threw a tantrum and didn't show at teacher Bai's funeral. With her fingers grabbed by me, in an instant, her face pale, she glared at me with wide eyes, trying hard to break free. As soon as I let go, she fell straight to the ground. I glanced at Wang Dating lying in the hospital bed. His hands were wrapped in a thick layer of gauze, just like me in my past life, looking wretched and grimacing. Bai Ningbing used the wall to stand up. I turned around and asked, the house was perfectly fine. Why did it catch fire? And why did Wang Dating appear nearby so quickly? Bai Ningbing's expression turned stiff. She glanced at Wang Dating behind her, lowered her head guiltily, unable to utter a single word. I sneered inwardly, recalling that before the fire in the last life, Bai Ningbing secretly brought Wang Dating home. They kissed and hugged uninhibitedly at home, eating the dumplings I made, and using the wine I bought as a catalyst for their relationship. Later, they accidentally caused a mishap. Wang Dating luckily escaped, but Bai Ningbing couldn't withstand the thick smoke and fainted. When Lu Ruyan told me all this back then, she stood there laughing wildly. I didn't expect you to love her so much that you specifically rushed back from the hospital and charged into the fire, ruining your hands and losing your job. Look at Bai Ningbing. Is she grateful to you at all? I snapped back to reality, looking at Bai Ningbing stammering in front of me. Wang Dating just happened to be passing by. He looked up at me, and then like a wild beast, cursed to the heavens. Isn't it all because of you? Even a stranger would lend a helping hand, but you, as her husband, just stood by and did nothing. Who gives you the right to question me here? I raised an eyebrow, saw Lu Ruyan standing outside the door with medicine, and casually asked her back. Is that so? Bai Ningbing stared nervously at Lu Ruyan, both angry and guilty, bumped past me and left the ward. I also left the ward to continue my routine round. After work, I returned to another apartment. It was the one I bought before marrying Bai Ningbing. Just as I opened the door and walked in, Bai Ningbing was in the kitchen washing her hands and cooking. She was a highly renowned genius artist and always took great care of her hands. Remembering when my hands were burned previously, she despised me as useless, said the lines on my hands were disgusting, and she couldn't accept them. She just kept eating out, leaving me alone to figure out my 3 meals. When I was hospitalized, she only visited once, and after that, wouldn't even spare me a glance. Bai Ningbing brought the dishes out, saw me, shot me a cold glance, and then poured all the food into a thermos. She put the lid on, grabbed her bag, and left. I entered the kitchen and found her phone tossed on the counter, while a few messages popped up on the screen. Baby, I've already passed verification. Forward this to your WeChat moments, and make sure to block people who know me, especially Fong Yuan. Following that was a link to a charity crowdfunding post. In the photo, Wang Dating looked pale, his hands wrapped in gauze. He disguised himself as an orphan with no parents above and no dependents below, a pitiful young worker suffering from severe illness. In the comments section, unknowing people were donating to him one after another. I sneered, took out an unused alternate account, and anonymously in the comments section, released that voice recording, along with the proof of assets under his name. A while later, the comments section was skeptical of the news I posted. This person is a scammer. Look, he has an investment company under his name, worth 6 figures, and still comes here to scam money. Is it real or fake? It doesn't look like it. I followed the info posted by the person above to dig, and it's actually true. Guys, don't get scammed. Following that, more and more of his real information was dug up. Wang Dating's comment section was overrun. Caring netizens crazily spammed red warning emojis in the comments. A few days later, Wang Dating was forced to delete this crowdfunding post. I increased the traffic, giving this matter to promotional bloggers. Various marketing accounts exerted efforts simultaneously, branding them with headlines like exposing the genius artist and famous investor commits crowdfunding fraud. Various media outlets saw the gimmick and eagerly reposted it. The matter gradually fermented. Netizens kept digging into who this genius artist and the famous investor were. Although no one cared about Wang Dating's tiny company, Bai Ningbing, this talent freak, the genius artist who assisted the police in solving cases, was actually dug up and was even pushed onto the trending topics. Her official account was also blown up. Holy crap. The genius artist is a scammer? One painting can sell for so much money, yet she still comes to scam ordinary people's money? Didn't they say she did good deeds before? Now, I happily scrolled through my phone. Looking at these comments, I was very satisfied, but the effect I wanted didn't stop there. When Bai Ningbing returned from the hospital, she looked like a piece of deadwood with no life left. Her face was haggard. Her eyes were bloodshot. She used her hands to personally cook for Wang Dating. In the past, Bai Ningbing was always arrogant, claiming her hands were meant to create beauty. She loved her hands very much and never willing to do chores. So after we got married, I washed all the clothes in the house. Seeing her toss her coat into the laundry bin, walking into the bedroom without looking up, I took out from my pocket the pinhole cameras I had prepared early on. I sewed them all into the buttonholes of her clothes. A doctor's hands have sutured wounds big and small, using all sorts of fine threads. Doing this kind of fine work was simply a piece of cake. The next morning, Bai Ningbing, still right in front of me, went to deliver food to Wang Dating without any hesitation. I opened my phone to test the camera I installed on her. Did it work? It wasn't until I saw Wang Dating's face on the screen and Bai Ningbing in the mirror that my heart finally relaxed. For more than 10 consecutive days, while I was busy with work, I was also investigating Wang Dating's company's fraud records, and the camera installed on Bai Ningbing finally caught what I wanted. She went to see a man in the afternoon, burly in figure, with a terrifying scar on his left cheek. A chill ran down my spine, remembering that in my past life, the one who mistook me for Wang Dating and threw me in the sea to drown included the scar-faced man who spoke to Bai Ningbing. Draw it. The camera was pointed right at the man's face, and then turned to the photo in Bai Ningbing's hand. A child who looked only 3 or 4 years old, exactly Wang Dating when he was little. My heart tightened, staring nervously at the screen. Bai Ningbing was greedy for money, used to an easy life since childhood. She disliked doctors, saying the salary was low, the work was busy, and always complained a lot about me. And after her childhood sweetheart in White Moonlight, Wang Dating returned to the country and started a company. She kept in close contact with him. Of course, she wouldn't let go of such a money-making opportunity. Bai Ningbing took a bank card from the man's hand. man. The man nodded in satisfaction. That same night, Bai Ningbing returned with the photo. Seeing me still sitting in the living room, she trembled, hurriedly turned around, bent over, pretending to change shoes, and secretly stuffed the photo into her coat pocket. Have you eaten? I warmed up the food. I asked her gently, just as usual. Previously, I strictly adhered to my mentor's dying wish, and she was certain that no matter how much she messed around, I wouldn't do anything to her. In her eyes, I was simply a soft persimmon she could manipulate at will, so she didn't even bat an eyelid, and walked straight towards the study. I sat alone at the dining table, eating the reheated food, staring closely at the footage from the camera. Bai Ningbing was sticking that photo of Wang Dadang onto the top right corner of the board, and picked up her brush to sketch. Just as the person's brows and eyes were about to be drawn, Bai Ningbing's hand paused. The brush instantly fell to the ground. She tore the paper down, tore it to shreds frantically, then hurriedly picked up the brush from the ground, and suddenly started drawing my likeness. She didn't even miss the small mole under my eyebrow, so I turned off the phone screen, and walked over holding a glass of hot milk. The moment I knocked on the door, the sound of something falling came from inside the study. Bai Ningbing hurriedly pushed away the chair, and opened the door. I met her gaze, and saw her eyes full of guilt and panic. Though she feigned composure, her voice was still trembling. What is it? I raised my hand, smiled and said to her, brought you some milk. However, my gaze bypassed her, and looked towards the half-drawn human face. I pointed at the drawing on her easel, and asked deliberately, well, are you drawing me? Bai Ningbing abruptly looked up, her pupils shrinking sharply. I was thoroughly familiar with this expression. Every time she lied, her eyes would dart around, stammering, yet feigning righteousness. She shifted her gaze, coughed lightly, just practicing. Is that not allowed? I squeezed out a smile, and pointed at that child's photo again. But I don't remember ever taking this photo. Bai Ningbing choked, glared at me in flustered anger. Mind your own business. I shrugged helplessly, and she slammed the door shut tightly with a bang. I continued taking out my phone to watch the monitor. After she returned to the study, her hand speed got faster and faster. It didn't take long before she roughly sketched out my appearance. Then she tore the child's photo into pieces, and threw it into the trash can. After Bai Ningbing fell asleep, I sneaked over, and swapped the portrait she put in her folder with Wang Dading's. It wasn't until I left the room, and saw that she didn't wake up again, that I let out a long breath, the pent-up frustration in my heart largely disappearing. Actually, before Bai Ningbing married me, she always liked Wang Dadang, who studied abroad with her. It wasn't until later, when Wang Dading's family business failed, that Bai Ningbing listened to her father, and married me. In the first year of our marriage, she always stayed in her studio and didn't come home, until one day, I accidentally stumbled into that studio, and found it filled with portraits of Wang Dadang. When she discovered I had entered that studio, we had a huge argument. Her face was full of guilt after her secret was discovered, and I didn't yield either, directly pointing out her issues. We gradually grew apart, from initially respecting each other like guests, turning into mutual disgust. Later, she hid all the portraits away. I secretly took one. I didn't expect it would come in handy at a time like this. The next day, when I woke up, Bai Ningbing had already left, just as I thought. She went to see that man with the scar on his face. In the monitor footage, they paid with one hand, and delivered the drawing with the other. Previously, just for this 50,000 yuan, Bai Ningbing, along with the white moonlight she yearned for, sold my life. I stopped recalling, until Bai Ningbing brought the money back to the hospital, heading straight to Wang Dading's ward. Looking eager to claim credit, she proudly told Wang Dadang about this, and showed him a bag of cash. Wang Dadang smiled with satisfaction in bed, patted her head. Look what this is? Wang Dadang took out a framed painting from the cabinet. Looking affectionately at Bai Ningbing, she was both surprised and delighted, and hurriedly exclaimed, isn't this my most expensive painting? Where did you get it? I remember this painting was bought for a high price by an overseas buyer. Was it you? Wang Dadang didn't nod, just smiled. Bai Ningbing seemed to get her answer, and hugged him excitedly. Bang Yuan probably couldn't bear to spend money to support you, right? So poor and stingy. I don't know why your dad married you off to him back then. I've been silently paying attention to you all these years. I've never missed a single one of your art exhibitions. Many of your paintings have been carefully treasured by me. After I'm discharged, do you want to go home with me and see? I turned off my phone. In an empty sense of loss, I thought of the generous overseas buyer at Bai Ningbing's art exhibition. As a famous genius artist, the paintings created by her hands were always priced very high. She once boasted to her best friend that a mysterious overseas buyer had bought quite a few of her paintings, and altogether, it was indeed a substantial amount. I sighed, and prepared to go out to work. When I returned to the hospital for my shift, Bai Ningbing and Wang Dadang happened to be discharging at the service desk. Seeing me approach, Nurse Xiaoli hurriedly glanced at Bai Ningbing holding Wang Dading's arm. Dr. Fong, this. I nodded, signaling her to continue their discharge process. I couldn't blame Nurse Xiaoli for her surprise. Before Wang Dadang returned, Bai Ningbing and I were at least a couple that treated each other with respect. At least in front of outsiders, it was like this. Hearing the sound, Bai Ningbing looked up and saw me, the smile at the corner of her mouth instantly disappearing. Now she had already sold me out to those debt collectors, believing disaster was looming over me, that my death was imminent. So she just stopped pretending, letting Wang Dadang like this flagrantly appear in front of me. She shot me a sideways glance, and remained silent. Instead, it was Wang Dadang who smiled, raised his hand and greeted me. Work hard, Dr. Fong. We have things to do, so we'll be leaving. I took a step forward, glanced at his other hand wrapped in heavy gauze, and deliberately provoked. Are the scars on your hand healed? Bai Ningbing is a great artist. She can't stand ugly things. Seeing these scars makes her feel sick. This sentence was what she personally told her best friend in the previous life. At that time, using such a tone of disgust, she complained about me. Do you know how disgusting those scars on his hands are? You all keep telling me to bear with it. You're not me. How could you know how awful it is for me to face him every day? I will never forget. After accidentally touching the twisted scars on my hand, she ran straight to the bathroom to dry heave, and then knelt on the floor, secretly calling Wang Dating to cry and complain. I can't take it anymore. I want to see you. While I held the hand burned by the raging fire, standing quietly outside the bathroom door listening to my wife's unbearably disgusted dry heaves, listening to her express her longing for another man. These things were like sharp thorns, deeply piercing my heart, and to this day, they remain hard to pull out. When I got home after my shift ended, Bai Ningbing was packing her suitcase. I opened my mouth and asked where she was going. Without looking up, she responded coldly, attending an art exhibition. When? Do you need me to take you? She turned back and looked at me warily, a trace of panic flashing in her eyes. And no need. As soon as she finished speaking, she carried her things and walked past me. I opened the surveillance video and found Bai Ningbing's flight information in it. It was an international flight at 3 p.m. the day after tomorrow, and her traveling companion was Wang Dating. I took a screenshot, used a number Bai Ningbing hadn't used in a long time, and contacted the scar-faced man. I sent a message to give him a heads up. When night fell in the dead of night, I quietly got up, took out the camera hidden in Bai Ningbing's buttonhole, and flushed it down the toilet along with the cut-up SIM card. I took a few commonly worn clothes and moved into the hospital dorm. While busy, I quietly waited for news of Bai Ningbing and Wang Dating. When I finished my third fracture surgery and went on rounds, the TV in the ward was broadcasting the news about the famous investor and genius artist absconding with charity funds. In the ward, a seriously ill little girl was hugging her doll tightly, staring unblinkingly at the report. It's all a lie. Fake. It's fake. A heart-piercing cry rang out miserably. Ignoring her broken bones and unhealed hands, she threw away the doll and shattered a painting placed by her bedside table. I hurriedly called the nurse in to soothe her emotions. Just as I was about to leave, I accidentally caught a glimpse of the painting covered in glass shards. The colors and composition were very familiar. It was the painting that won Bai Ningbing her first award 10 years ago. At that time, she donated all her prize money to children suffering from severe illnesses who needed funds for treatment. The little girl was restrained by us on the bed, her doll eyes full of despair, staring blankly at the ceiling. With tear-filled eyes, she turned to look at me and choked out, "Uncle, I always made becoming a kind and talented artist like her my goal. Tell me, that news is fake, right?" Her voice grew lower and lower. I froze, my emotions complex for a moment, unable to make another sound. The video of Bai Ningbing and Wang Dating didn't take long to spread everywhere. When I returned to the department, my colleagues all looked up at me, and when I looked up, they pretended to casually look elsewhere. In the video, Wang Dating and Bai Ningbing were at the airport, stopped on the spot by a group of burly men. Those thugs, taking advantage before the police arrived, had already rushed forward and almost beat Wang Dating half to death. Bai Ningbing's face was full of panic and disbelief. She dropped her luggage and bag and recklessly charged toward Wang Dating, who was surrounded. By the time the police arrived and pulled them apart, Bai Ningbing was like a puddle of mud, collapsed on the ground, struggling and whimpering. Her hands hung weakly by her sides, covered with large and small red, swollen marks. From start to finish, her hands couldn't be lifted. Arriving at the hospital, Bai Ningbing was pushed off the ambulance by people and rushed all the way to the emergency room. I stood 5 meters away from her, quietly watching all this unfold. I was calm, as if watching a story from another world. Her eyes, full of ash and despair, when she saw me, were like grasping a life-saving straw, staring dead at me. She desperately tried to sit up and toss about, but was restrained by the nurses around her. Seeing me standing still with no reaction from her increasingly desperate and fierce eyes, I read 2 words: save me. I am the best orthopedic surgeon in this hospital. I've performed bone healing surgeries big and small, but a few days earlier, when she and Wang Dating plotted to abscond with the funds, I had already finished my shifts. The person doing surgery for her tonight was not me. All I could do was watch her go. The next day, genius artist's hands fractured surged to the trending topics. At this time, Bai Ningbing, after her surgery, had already woken up. She lay on the hospital bed in near despair, her face covered in deathly stillness. I went in for rounds as usual. Upon seeing me, she seemed to wake up from her despair. Staring dead at me, she questioned sharply, "Did you do this?" She lunged at me like a madman, her eyes filled with terrifyingly angry bloodshot veins. I looked up and said indifferently, "Do you have proof? Also, didn't you say you were going to an art exhibition? Why was Wang Dating with you?" Hearing me mention Wang Dating, she was instantly left speechless. The anger that just flared up was helplessly suppressed. "Your attending doctor told me that the fractures in your hands are severe. The hope for a full recovery is slim. Look out for yourself." I finished recording and prepared to leave. Bai Ningbing suddenly got up, instinctively trying to grab the hem of my shirt, but she forgot the injuries on her hands. Losing her balance, she fell heavily to the floor. "Fang Yuan, please help me, okay? I only have you now. You are the best orthopedic surgeon. You must have a way, right? I'm someone destined to be an artist. My hands can't be ruined." Her hair was messy, kneeling on the ground. Her eyes were full of helplessness and panic. I squatted down, looked at her carefully, smiled and said to her, "I forgot to tell you, I'm about to resign from this hospital and prepare to study abroad. Rest and recuperate well. There will be hope." I stepped past her, strode forward and left the ward. "Fang Yuan, how dare you treat me like this? How dare you?" Bai Ningbing's heart-wrenching cries were isolated in that small ward. That roar and scream nearing despair reminded me that there was once someone at death's door who also refused to believe that his own wife would harm him to death for the sake of another. Ever since Wang Dating entered the police station, he never came out again. Actually, him posing as an overseas buyer previously, buying Bai Ningbing's paintings at high prices, was just to launder the money from illicit operations. Later, he absconded with the funds, and the company's clients all chased after him, surrounding the company building every day. And the money on Bai Ningbing had already been quietly swept away by Wang Dating. Not a cent left. I even told these news to Bai Ningbing to hear. "Your previous business partners, after hearing about your injury, have all terminated their contracts with you. For the next few decades, decades, they probably won't cooperate with you again. Bai Ningbing looked at me in disbelief. She questioned fiercely, say that again. I smiled, looked up at her, and said, it's highly likely you'll never be able to paint again. Your current condition is truly unoptimistic. You'd better just rest and recuperate. Stop thinking about painting. Right after, I took out a drafted divorce agreement and placed it by the table. Sign it. Once you're discharged, I'll come take you to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Bai Ningbing panicked visibly to the naked eye. Staring blankly at that divorce agreement, she turned to look at me in absolute disbelief. When she spoke, even the corners of her mouth were trembling. Fong Yuan, do you really want to divorce me? Are you really going to be this heartless? She grew emotional, instantly sat up from the bed, and closed in on me. Our feelings from all these years, are you just tossing them away just like that? And my father, have you forgotten your promise to him? I looked at her coldly, trying my best to restrain a heart full of anger, and spoke coldly. I said it. You're not worthy to mention my mentor. On the day my mentor was buried, do you remember what you were doing? My hands gripped tightly into fists, recalling the scene back then. On the day my mentor was buried, Bai Ningbing was celebrating Wang Dating's dog's birthday. He was diligent his whole life, and when he passed, nearly 100 students came to mourn him. The only one missing was the person he loved all his life, his only flesh and blood. Bai Ningbing shook her head, and like a madwoman right in front of me, swept the divorce agreement onto the floor, and stomped on it fiercely. Looking at me confidently, she said, you want to divorce me? No way. If it weren't for my father, you'd be absolutely nothing right now. I had anticipated this, so I wasn't anxious. I just patiently took out from behind a whole stack of drafted divorce agreements. You cheated during the marriage. You are the at-fault party. If you're unwilling to divorce by agreement, then I will go through the legal process. By then, you won't get a single thing. With those words, Bai Ningbing stood rooted to the spot. I had no patience to wait for her answer, so I left the ward, waiting until the day Bai Ningbing was discharged. The nurse told me she was gone. I searched the whole hospital, but couldn't find her. When I returned home to check, I found the house brightly lit. She had hired someone to prepare a lavish dinner. She sat quietly at the dining table, waiting for me. On the table were candles I bought last year to celebrate our anniversary that weren't fully used. The moment I walked in, the orange-red candlelight felt blinding. Fong Yuan, you're back. It's just done. Come have a taste. On Bai Ningbing's pale face, she forced a smile and warmly waved me over. It felt so incredibly foreign to me. Come to think of it, we haven't sat down to eat together in a long time. She looked at me attentively and as if nothing had happened, made small talk. She arduously brought out wine from the cabinet. I just shot her a flat glance. After the fire at home, you were always busy taking care of Wang Dadang. Naturally, there was no chance. What? Are you not going to see him lately? I used to be the one cooking. Bai Ningbing disliked the kitchen, said it smelled of grease, and didn't want to waste her hands. She never stepped one foot inside. Every day at home, I was the one waiting for her to come back to eat. But she was always out socializing, and rarely came back. I put down my bag, and walked straight up. Have you signed the divorce agreement? In 2 months, I'm going abroad. Since you're free, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. Bai Ningbing restrained her smile, and put down the wine she just picked up. Fong Yuan, did you forget? Today is our wedding anniversary. Can we first just sit down properly, and have a meal? I raised an eyebrow, with no intention of sitting down. I just looked at her coldly. She spoke to herself. Fong Yuan, I know I was wrong. I was deceived by that guy Wang Dadang. My father told me long ago that his intentions were impure. Only you are worthy of entrusting my whole life to. I was young and arrogant back then, and didn't listen to my father's words. It was my fault. Bai Ningbing stepped forward to hold my hand. Looking up at me, tears fell down street by street. But everyone makes mistakes. There's always a moment of confusion, isn't there? She's right. Everyone makes mistakes, but some mistakes cannot be made twice. Bai Ningbing pined for Wang Dadang all these years because she valued the things attached to him. A poor student with a simple background in impoverished family versus a wealthy childhood sweetheart wrapped up with meticulous effort. For her, it was a very simple choice to begin with. But now, Wang Dadang was facing a crisis, and she herself couldn't survive on her own. I once again became a strong support she could cling to. I forcefully shook off her hand and straightened my cuff she had wrinkled. After I broke free, she still seemed unwilling to yield. Must we really reach this point? I turned my head away and ignored her. She scattered everything on the table to the floor. Sitting among the debris, she burst into tears, as if she had become a different person. After she cried tiredly, she started smashing things, decorations, wine bottles, candles, smashing whatever she could meticulously find. Just like that, we dragged things out in a mess for a whole night, physically and mentally exhausted. When dawn was about to break, Bai Ningbing, sitting crying on the floor, seemed to think of something. Hurriedly from the broken fragments, she tremblingly found a pen and signed that oil-stained divorce agreement. Later I learned it was to avoid leaving with nothing that she made this compromise. Before going abroad, I sold the apartment under my name, and the buyer happened to be her best friend. On the day Lu Ruyan brought people to kick Bai Ningbing out of that apartment, I happened to drive by downstairs. Bai Ningbing cursed loudly downstairs. Lu Ruyan is a despicable person. Lu Ruyan smiled mockingly, pointing at her and mocking. Do you still think you're a genius artist? Stop putting on that high and mighty act for me. If you hadn't been vain and looked down on Fong Yuan, insisting on messing around with Wang Dadang, how would I have today's glory? Bai Ningbing pulled her hair and cursed loudly. Their scuffle attracted more and more onlookers. Finally, it attracted the police. The two of them in the police station mutually exposed each other's secrets. In the end, it escalated, digging up past old scores. The police started to investigate them, and because I had to cooperate with the investigation, I saw them again straight in the courtroom. Bai Ningbing and Lu Ruyan looked ashen, sitting in the defendant's seat, numbly listening to charge after charge. Before the the second session could begin, Bai Ningbing went mad. She was sent to a mental hospital overnight. When I was notified by hospital staff and rushed there, Bai Ningbing was being restrained on the bed by doctors and nurses. They said Bai Ningbing was involved in a case and suspected of faking madness to escape trial, so she needed to be observed in the hospital for a period to confirm the appraisal. Bai Ningbing kept clamoring to see me. Left with no choice, they had to notify me to come. In the dead of night, Bai Ningbing woke up. Seeing me sitting by her bed, she began to cry softly. I wiped away her tears and said to her extremely gently, "Listen to the doctors, be good, get proper treatment, and you'll get better. You must get better. Otherwise, there will be no one to bear those consequences." After all divorce matters were concluded, my procedures for going abroad were almost done. On the day I boarded the plane, Bai Ningbing, I don't know from where, found out my flight information and sneaked out to wait for me at the airport. She wore the blue dress she had on the first time I saw her. Back then, she received a call from my mentor to return from abroad. When my mentor and I came to the airport to pick her up, she was wearing this exact dress. In the northern November winter, she dressed like this, looking very thin. Just getting off the flight, she very warmly and naturally took over the coat I was still hesitating whether to offer. "Thank you, good student." Back then, her brows and eyes were expressive, a smile on her lips, her whole person possessing an indescribable vibrancy. Her long hair was casually tied into a bun, and a few strands that fell down brushed past my fingertips, offering the coat. I had already seen her paintings at my mentor's place long ago. The colors were flamboyant and rich, vitality splashing like water. When I truly saw her, I realized she was just like the paintings under her brush, extremely vibrant. To the silent and rigid me back then, it produced an unspeakable attraction. But seeing her now, wearing this dress and appearing there, both the person and the dress looked incredibly pale. I didn't give her a chance to say goodbye to me, nor did I want to engage in any more meaningless entanglement and awkward small talk. I stood in a corner and dialed the hospital's number, telling the orderly to remember to pick her up. After hanging up the phone, I got a cup of hot water. Feeling a tingling, burning pain transmitting straight from the tip of my tongue, I could finally tell myself with peace of mind, all this was not fake.